Imagine driving through the city, lost in thought, when suddenly, a terrified, starving German shepherd leaps through your open car window. His ribs are visible, his fur is matted, and his eyes are wide with fear. He refuses to leave. He cowers in the back seat, trembling, staring at you as if you're his only hope. Why did he choose you? What is he running from? This couple had no idea the shocking truth they were about to uncover, and when they finally realized why Tyson had jumped into their car, their lives changed forever. Emily adjusted the air conditioning, letting out a sigh as she gripped the steering wheel. The city streets were congested as usual, filled with impatient drivers honking their horns. The golden light of the setting sun bounced off the glass buildings, creating a warm but overwhelming glare. It had been a long day, and she was ready to be home. Jake sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through his phone. His feet were propped up slightly on the dashboard, and he hummed along to the soft music playing on the radio. They had just turned onto a quieter road when it happened. Out of nowhere, a large blur of fur and movement came bolting from the sidewalk. Before Emily could even react, a German shepherd launched himself through the open rear window. The car jerked slightly as Emily instinctively slammed on the brakes. "What the hell?" Jake yelped, his phone slipping from his hands as he twisted around in his seat. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she turned her head, her heart racing. A thin, filthy German shepherd was curled up in the back seat, his entire body trembling. His ribs were shockingly visible, and his fur was matted and covered in dirt. His tail was tightly tucked, his ears pinned flat against his head, and his wide, terrified eyes darted between them as if expecting something terrible to happen. He looked like he had been running for his life. Emily's hands trembled as she put the car in park. "Where did he come from?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake reached for the door handle, cautiously opening it. "Okay, buddy, let's get you out of here." Before he could finish his sentence, the dog flinched violently and let out a low, trembling growl. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't a threat. It was pure, raw fear. Jake froze. Emily's chest tightened as she got a closer look at the dog. His body was so thin, so fragile, yet his muscles were locked with tension, as if he was ready to bolt at any second. "Jake, he's scared. Really scared." Jake swallowed hard, nodding. This wasn't a normal stray. This dog wasn't here looking for food. He wasn't jumping into cars for fun. He was running from something. Emily looked out onto the sidewalk, scanning the area. Was someone chasing him? Had he escaped from somewhere? The street was eerily empty. Just a few people in the distance, walking in the opposite direction. Nothing. No one. Just them and this terrified dog. Emily turned back to the German shepherd. He hadn't moved, hadn't relaxed. He was still pressed into the corner of the seat, shaking uncontrollably. Her heart ached. "Jake, I don't think we should kick him out." Jake exhaled, running a hand through his hair. We can't just take in a random dog. He might belong to someone." Emily looked at the dog again. "Does this look like a dog that's been loved by anyone?" Jake stared at the shepherd, his expression shifting. For a long moment, no one said anything. The only sound in the car was the dog's shaky, uneven breaths. Then, softly, Emily whispered, "Why did you pick us?" The dog didn't move, didn't blink. But in his eyes there was something more than fear. Something that felt like a plea. And at that moment, Emily realized this wasn't just a lost dog. Something had brought him to them for a reason. And whatever it was, they were about to find out. Emily and Jake sat frozen in the front seats, their eyes locked on the trembling German shepherd in the back. Tyson had wedged himself so far into the corner that it seemed as if he was trying to disappear. His frail body was pressed against the door, his ribs protruding under his dirty fur. His eyes darted between them, filled with uncertainty, panic, and something else. A deep, haunting sadness. Jake let out a slow breath, gripping the steering wheel. "What do we do?" His voice was quiet, careful not to startle the dog any more than he already was. Emily shook her head. "I don't know. But we can't just shove him out. Look at him, Jake. He's terrified." Jake glanced back at the dog, taking in his frail frame, his sunken eyes, the way his tail remained curled so tightly between his legs. He looked broken. Jake sighed and turned around in his seat, reaching slowly toward the glove compartment. "What are you doing?" Emily asked, trying to see if we have something for him to eat. He fumbled through a few napkins, an old receipt, a spare flashlight. Then his hand landed on something small, a granola bar. It wasn't much, but it was something. He unwrapped it carefully, breaking off a tiny piece before holding it out in his palm. "Hey buddy, you hungry?" Tyson's nose twitched, catching the scent. But he didn't move, didn't even flinch. His ears stayed pinned back, his breathing still shallow and quick. He wasn't ignoring the food. He was too scared to take it. Emily's heart clenched. "He's too afraid to eat, Jake." Jake sighed, placing the small piece of granola bar onto the seat near Tyson. "We can't just leave him like this, Emily. He needs help." Emily nodded, gripping the steering wheel as she thought. She could see the hesitation in Jake's face. He wasn't sure if taking in a stray was the right move, but looking at Tyson, she knew there was no other choice. "Let's take him home. Just for now. Just to make sure he's okay." Jake let out a breath, then nodded. "Okay. But if he has an owner, we'll have to find them." Emily glanced back at Tyson. Something in her gut told her this dog didn't belong to anyone anymore. As she put the car in drive, Tyson didn't move an inch. He stayed curled into the back corner, still trembling. Emily tightened her grip on the wheel, a deep feeling settling in her chest. Something had happened to this dog, something terrible. And now, whether they were ready or not, it was up to them to help him heal. The drive home felt longer than usual. The weight of the situation sat heavy between Emily and Jake, as they stole cautious glances at Tyson, still curled up in the back seat. He hadn't moved, not even an inch. His thin body remained pressed against the door, his tail tucked so tightly it was barely visible beneath him. Emily's heart clenched at the sight. What had this dog been through? She could only imagine the kind of life he had lived, the kind of things that had made him so afraid of people. Jake broke the silence. "You think he was abandoned?" Emily nodded slowly. "If he had a home, it wasn't a good one." Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just don't get it. Why us? Out of all the cars on that street, why did he jump into ours?" Emily glanced in the rearview mirror, meeting Tyson's hollow eyes. Maybe he knew we wouldn't leave him behind. Jake didn't argue. As they pulled into their driveway, the real challenge hit them, getting Tyson inside. Emily turned off the engine and twisted in her seat. "All right, buddy. Let's get you inside, okay?" Tyson didn't move. Jake slowly opened his door and stepped out, circling to the back. "I'll try to lift him." Emily bit her lip. "Be careful." Jake opened the back door, crouching down slightly. "Hey bud. It's okay. Let's get you somewhere warm." But the second his hands got close, Tyson flinched violently, letting out a sharp, panicked yelp. Jake immediately pulled back. Emily's chest tightened. "You thought he was going to be hurt." "Jake, wait. Let me try something." She reached for the grocery bag in the passenger seat, pulling out a leftover piece of cooked chicken from earlier that day. She crouched beside the car, holding the piece of meat in her palm, just inches away from Tyson's face. "Come on, boy. You're safe now." Tyson stared at her hand. His nose twitched. He wanted to take it, but something deep in his instincts was holding him back. Hunger versus fear. Emily could see the battle in his eyes. Minutes passed. Then, ever so slowly, Tyson moved. It was only a small shift, his front paws barely pushing forward, but it was progress. Jake watched in silence as Tyson hesitated, then finally lowered his head and gently took the food from Emily's hand. A tear burned in her throat as she exhaled. "Good boy." Tyson chewed slowly, his body still tense but no longer frozen in panic. It was enough. Jake took the opportunity to grab a blanket from the back seat. Carefully, without sudden movements, he wrapped it around Tyson's frail body and lifted him into his arms. This time, Tyson didn't fight. Emily quickly opened the front door, and Jake carried him inside, setting him down gently on the floor near the couch. Tyson didn't explore. He didn't sniff around. He simply collapsed onto the blanket, curling into himself as if trying to disappear. Jake knelt beside him. "He's completely shut down." Emily swallowed hard. "He's never been safe before. He doesn't know what to do." Jake exhaled, sitting back against the couch. Emily crouched beside Tyson's trembling form, resisting the urge to reach out and pet him. He wasn't ready, but he was here. And for now, that was enough. The living room was silent, except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. The soft glow from the lamp cast warm light over the space, but the atmosphere remained heavy. Tyson hadn't moved. He was curled tightly on the blanket Jake had set down for him, his thin frame barely rising with each slow breath. His eyes remained open but unfocused, staring blankly at the floor. He wasn't asleep. He was just existing. Emily sat cross-legged a few feet away, watching him carefully. She wanted to reach out, to reassure him, but she knew that forcing trust would only push him further away. Jake sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, searching for missing dog reports or anything that might explain where Tyson had come from. But there was nothing. No reports matching his description? Jake muttered. No one is looking for him. Emily wasn't surprised. She studied Tyson's frail body, the scars hidden beneath his matted fur, the haunted look in his deep brown eyes. Someone had failed him. Or worse, someone had hurt him. Her stomach twisted. She leaned forward slightly, keeping her voice soft. You don't have to be afraid anymore, buddy. We're not going to hurt you. Tyson's ears flicked, barely acknowledging her words. Jake sighed and put his phone down. Do you think he's ever been inside a house before? Emily shook her head. If he has, it wasn't a good one. A moment of silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, Tyson shifted. Not much, but just enough for them to notice. His paws stretched slightly, his body relaxing a fraction. His breathing, still shaky, became just a bit steadier. Emily's heart clenched. It was progress. She turned to Jake. I think we should try giving him a bath tomorrow. Jake raised an eyebrow. You think he'll let us? Emily bit her lip. He might not have a choice. He's covered in dirt, and those wounds on his legs look like they could get infected. Jake nodded. All right, we'll take it slow. Emily glanced back at Tyson. He was still curled up, still distant. But for the first time, he didn't look like he was waiting for something bad to happen. It was small, almost imperceptible. But it was there. And sometimes, the smallest steps forward meant the most. The morning sunlight streamed through the living room window, casting a golden glow over the wooden floors. Emily sat on the couch, sipping her coffee, her gaze fixed on Tyson, who still lay curled on the blanket. He hadn't moved much all night. Even though they had placed a bowl of water and some kibble near him, the food remained untouched. The only thing he had accepted was the piece of chicken Emily had given him the night before. She sighed, placing her mug down on the coffee table. We need to clean him up today, Jake. He's covered in dirt, and I think some of those wounds need attention. Jake, still half asleep, rubbed his face. Yeah, but how are we supposed to bathe a dog that won't even stand up? Emily glanced at Tyson. We do it carefully. And together. Jake stretched, exhaling deeply before getting up. All right, let's give it a shot. But if he freaks out, we stop. Emily nodded. They both approached Tyson slowly, making sure not to startle him. His ears twitched, acknowledging their presence, but his body remained tense. Emily crouched beside him. Hey buddy, we need to clean you up, okay? I promise we'll be gentle. Tyson's eyes flicked to her, wary but not as lifeless as before. Jake carefully reached toward him with a leash, looping it gently around Tyson's neck. Not to restrain him, just to give them some control in case he panicked. The second Tyson felt the pressure, his body stiffened. Emily felt her heart hammer in her chest. Was this going to be too much for him? It's okay, Tyson. No one's going to hurt you. Jake gave a soft tug, just enough to encourage him to stand. For a second, Tyson didn't move. Then, he slowly pushed himself up. Emily's breath caught in her throat. It was the first time he had stood since they brought him inside. His legs wobbled beneath him, his body so weak that it looked like he might collapse at any second. But he was trying. Jake swallowed hard. Good boy. Emily reached out, offering her hand to him again. And for the first time, he didn't recoil. He didn't lean into her either. But the fact that he allowed her to remain close was a huge step forward. Together, they guided Tyson toward the bathroom, his steps slow and unsteady. By the time they reached the tub, he was visibly trembling, not just from weakness, but from pure fear. Emily's voice was gentle. I know this is scary, buddy, but you'll feel so much better after this. Jake turned on the water, adjusting the temperature before grabbing a pitcher to slowly pour warm water over Tyson's filthy coat. The second the water touched him, he flinched violently. Emily and Jake both froze. Tyson's breathing hitched, his body locked in place. Emily felt her throat tighten. What had this dog been through? She moved even slower, whispering softly, "It's okay. We're not going to hurt you. I promise." Jake lathered the shampoo in his hands and gently massaged it into Tyson's fur. For the first few minutes, Tyson stood stiff as a statue. His muscles were so tight it looked painful. But he wasn't fighting. Then, something changed. As Jake rinsed him, Tyson let out a deep exhale. A shaky, unsteady breath, but a release. Emily's heart clenched. He's relaxing. Jake kept his movements careful, his voice soft. Yeah, he's finally realizing we're not going to hurt him. As the last of the soap rinsed away, Tyson lowered his head slightly, his eyes softer than before. And then, when Jake reached for a towel, Tyson took a step toward him. Not out of fear, not out of panic, but by choice. Emily swallowed hard. It was small. Almost nothing. But for a dog like Tyson, it was everything. The bathroom was quiet except for the occasional drip of water from the faucet. Tyson stood still, his damp fur clinging to his frail body, his ribs still painfully visible beneath his coat. Emily crouched beside him, gently rubbing a towel over his back, careful not to startle him. Jake stood a few feet away, watching closely, his hands gripping another towel in case Tyson suddenly panicked. But he didn't. For the first time since he had leaped into their car, he wasn't trembling. Emily's heart swelled. "You did so well, buddy." Tyson glanced at her, his deep brown eyes softer than before. There was still hesitation, still fear, but something had shifted. Jake stepped forward slowly, crouching beside them. "You feeling better, bud?" Tyson's ears flicked at the sound of his voice. Then, something unexpected happened. Tyson leaned forward, pressing his nose against Jake's knee. Jake froze. Emily's breath caught in her throat. It lasted only a second, just a brief, tentative touch. But it was the first real sign of trust. Jake exhaled, his voice barely above a whisper. "Did you see that?" Emily nodded, her chest tight with emotion. Tyson had chosen to reach out. It wasn't much, but it was everything. Jake carefully extended his hand, keeping it open and low to the ground. Tyson hesitated. Then, ever so slowly, he let Jake rest his palm against his damp fur. A soft, shaky breath left Emily's lips. She hadn't realized she was holding it. Jake swallowed hard. "Good boy." Tyson's tail didn't wag. His body was still tense, but he didn't pull away. Emily wiped a tear from her cheek before Tyson could notice. "Let's get him somewhere warm." Jake nodded, gently guiding Tyson toward the living room. Tyson followed. On his own. He wasn't being carried. He wasn't being forced. For the first time, he was choosing to stay. Emily grabbed a fresh blanket, placing it near the couch. "Here you go, buddy. This one's all yours." Tyson lowered himself onto the soft fabric, his body still weak, but his eyes no longer so hollow. Jake sat on the couch beside him, and Emily joined. For a long moment, they just sat there, watching as Tyson settled in. Then, he sighed. A deep, long, tired exhale, and just like that, for the first time in who knew how long, he finally let himself rest. Emily felt her throat tighten. She knew they weren't there yet. Tyson still had a long way to go, but in that moment, with the warmth of the blanket around him, and the presence of people who finally saw him, he wasn't alone anymore, and that was enough for now. The morning light streamed through the living room window, casting a warm glow over the couch, where Tyson lay curled up on his blanket. His fur was still slightly damp from last night's bath, but now he looked peaceful. For the first time since they had found him, he was sleeping. Emily sat at the kitchen table, her coffee untouched as she watched him. It was a sight she hadn't expected to see so soon. Jake entered the room, rubbing his eyes. "Is he still asleep?" Emily nodded. "Yeah. And he looks like he finally feels safe." Jake pulled out his phone and sat beside her. "I've been thinking, what if we keep him?" Emily turned to him, surprised. Jake had been cautious from the beginning, concerned about finding Tyson's owner, about what taking in a stray would mean. But now, he was the one suggesting it. "You don't think someone's looking for him?" she asked. Jake shook his head. "I checked again this morning. No lost dog reports, no missing posters, nothing. And honestly, does he look like a dog that was loved?" Emily swallowed hard. She already knew the answer. She looked at Tyson again, at the way his body was no longer curled up in fear, but stretched out in comfort. "If we keep him, we have to do it right, Jake. He's been through hell." Jake nodded. "Then let's give him the home he deserves." Emily smiled, warmth filling her chest. She got up and walked over to Tyson, crouching down beside him. "Hey buddy, how do you feel about staying with us?" Tyson stirred at the sound of her voice, his ears twitching slightly. Slowly, he blinked his deep brown eyes open. For a second, he looked confused, like he had forgotten where he was. Then, he stretched his front paws out and let out a long, deep sigh. Emily hesitated before reaching out her hand, giving him the choice. Tyson looked at her hand for a moment. Then, he made his decision. He pressed his nose into her palm. Jake let out a quiet chuckle. "I think that's a yes." Emily felt tears prick her eyes as she gently scratched behind Tyson's ears. For the first time since he had jumped into their car, his tail gave the smallest hesitant wag. It was slow. It was uncertain, but it was there. And it meant everything. Tyson had chosen them. And this time, no one would ever abandon him again. Tyson's journey wasn't just about survival. It was about finding love, trust, and a second chance. He may have started as a terrified stray, but now, he finally has the home he always deserved. How many dogs like Tyson are still out there, waiting for someone to see them, waiting for a chance to feel safe? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story. And if you believe every dog deserves a second chance, share this video with someone who loves animals. Together, we can make a difference.